Hello? Hello. Looks like Computer Sally's going to work okay this morning with just a couple of clicks of a couple of buttons. And here we are. If my voice sounds hysterical, it shouldn't be. I mean, YouTube is rolling. The name's Beattie. John Beattie, International Director of the British People's League. Glad to have you with us today. May the 13th, 2014. Bringing you the Dinosaur News. Dinosaur News produced by the BritishPeoplesLeague.com. So how are you today? Well, it's only been 24 hours since we talked. So, on serious notes again, first off, if you're here for entertaining, you're wasting your time. We're not here for entertainment. We're here for serious business. The business of saving our people's future down the road, those of British stock and our European cousins. We can discuss the various ways that have been tried to halt the multicult invasion till the cows come home. Annual conferences. Yes, there's one quite respectable organization called Enron in the States, American Renaissance. They had about 175 white people out of, what do we say in the States, 150 million. 150 million whites in America, and they get 175 attending a respectable group. Have I made my point? They're all great. They're all well-meaning. They're all terrific. Even some Tea Party types are genuine. And that's the closest parallel we can give to Prime Minister Harper up here in Canada for you folks in Australia, the motherland, etc. Harper is probably an equivalent of one of your Tea Party guys. And we read every day in the news how bad it's getting. And then you've got the Blog Talk Radio. And they get terrific ratings on what they call the LXA ratings of listenership. 150 million whites in America. Terrific listenership on Blog Talk Radio shows. But what's it getting done? What's getting done? Zero. Just talk. And again, I'm not insulting the broadcasters, many of whom are my friends, and I hope they're still my friends after the focus that the British People's League is having on cell structures, cell get-togethers, cell groupings, legal cell groupings by friends of the British People's League, no matter what country you're in. The invasion is almost totally successful. The major cities in North America are multicultural. In the motherland, multicultural. I can't say about Australia, since my good friend Nick Main passed away over a year and a half ago. I haven't had the daily reports, but I imagine Sydney, Australia is just as multicultural as all the cities in other former white countries. And you know, the sign for the future is look what's happening to the whites, the Boers in South Africa. They're being slaughtered, picked off one at a time, farmer by farmer. So those who are tuned in, and I don't mean to insult our friends who are tuned in, please. I wouldn't even be doing the show if I didn't know we had our friends out there. We know the score. We know what's going on. The podcasts have been tried for about 5 years now. Conferences have been tried for the last 50 years. Break it down from the high conference level down to the little wee nitty-gritty cell structure. We have to have cells in place in the outskirts or the inner core of cities where people are fed up to the teeth, right in the middle of the jungle. Cell structures, cell systems. Look up cell. I don't like Wikipedia, but once in a while we have to borrow the enemy's crap. But they have quite a lengthy article on political cell structures. Political cell structures. Google Wikipedia on political cells. But there's so much political cells can do in the way of activity, just day to day. For instance, a report I had this morning. This particular friend of the British People's League was in a store. The clerk said they were all sold out and could not understand why there was such a run on British flags. I wonder why, end quote. Now that's encouraging. I've noticed that too. It's the smallest symbol of resistance perhaps that people can come up with personally. Fly the old red ensign. Fly the full Union Jack. Even the Ontario flag still has the Union Jack incorporated in it. So that's pretty good news to get up to this morning on the emails from our blind list. The clerk said they were all sold out and could not understand why there was such a run on British flags. I wonder why. The full Union Jack used to be Canada's flag in the early 1900s, and then we incorporated the red ensign. And she carries on here. The valet who parked my car told me he was fascinated by the CD content and said he stayed in my car to listen to the whole thing and where could he get one. He liked the part about the genetic code of whites versus the others. I gave him my copy and he went off a very happy French Canadian. A nice white guy. So it's little reports like that that the cell structures can operate on a day-to-day basis. As a cell, you could have a get-together over tea, coffee, beer, or whatever, and discuss small little activities that will let the public at the grassroots level know that there are white people who are active in remembrance of our white British roots, our European roots. The cell structure is it. That's all we've got left. That's all the underground had in France during the Second World War. Sir Winston Churchill planned the British resistance if there was a full physical landed invasion of the motherland back then. But yes, you can't blame some German patriots for snickering who won the war. Now that you see a total invasion of Britain by Pakistan. Oh, sure, there's the country estates. They're kept nice, white, bright, and beautiful for the landed gentry and all. But the little people, we're the ones that have to face them on the buses, the multi-cult mob. The little people on the streets. Is it any wonder that some young people go off the deep end, some young, rougher, tougher construction type guys have their little wingdings. And then you've got spokespeople for the dead Canadian Jewish Congress muttering away about, well, freedom of speech, but still, we got to watch these guys. Well, are these spokespeople for the former Canadian Jewish Congress watching the murders every weekend in the big cities? Are they saying anything about that? I mean, who are these people? There's some good Jews out there who are as patriotic as can be. And then you get these idiot political spokespeople for Zionism mouthing off about some young roughnecks, white roughnecks, who want to have their own private get-togethers. Or even public. Some of them don't care who shows up. Is it any wonder that you get the rougher element going off the deep end? So let's refocus, folks. Let's do the cell structure. And we can network as secret, confidential, but legal cells. And we went on at this yesterday, and we'll continue to go on at it. Is this hysteria? Alarmist? That's a fact. I mean, what 30 years ago would be a headline for a few days at least would be a shootout in Toronto in broad daylight. Now every day when you click in the newspaper headlines, it's killing a day, so what? You know, big deal. Murder here, murder there. Little liberals, little white liberals just scurrying around, promoting multiculturalism while they go back to their guarded estates. Penthouse liberals. Again, the little guy, the little white people, have to face the multicult hordes on the transit or what have you. The cell structure thing is serious. Again, check it out, Political Cells, Wikipedia. And I can hear some groaning and moaning, well, John, we're going to be in the public eye all the time so that, the public will flock with us. Excuse me, that's been tried for 50 years. It's been tried for 50 years. Hasn't worked. When there's invasions throughout history, only the undergrounds throughout history have freed a country from the invaders. And it's no different now. The only hope left in the white countries, what's left of white countries, are the villages. And slowly multiculturalism is seeping into the villages, slowly. Shops here, shops there, new multicult owners, how cute. I'm asked, do you feel maybe you're a little bit off your rocker, John Beattie? And I often answer, well, yes, I know I'm off my rocker. Why should I care? Why do I care? Well, in memory of our ancestors, and especially those who passed away in Canada's secret civil war that were slowly working on the book. So I have a debt, a blood debt, to repay by keeping the word as to what took place in memory of our ancestors. I have a conscience. I must preach what happened, and to the best of my ability, and you cannot beat the cell structure. I defy anyone to come up with a better approach, a better approach that has not already been tried and tried and tried again. I wish one of the other attempts had worked. I wish the broadcast would get 100,000 people out marching on the streets. Hasn't happened and it won't happen. Little teeny cell structures of our peoples from coast to coast, those awakened. Then we network. As the email came in this morning, we network with the cells. And surely you're not totally alone with your views. You must have one person you share these views with. Have you had that person watching these videos? And not because Johnny Boy loves to see himself in video. Look, with my gray hair, I'd just as soon sleep in, not prepare for the shows, etc. As many have heard me say in past videos, I'm doing it because there's no George down the street doing it. There's no Mary down the street doing it. As the label on the ketchup bottle. However, the optimism, many of our blind list people are in a cell structure. Perhaps they weren't calling it a cell structure. I suggest they do so to give them a feeling that the hour is late. Cell structures are needed to preserve our way of life and to reclaim our lands. In a legal fashion, of course. When the public really want us to have a go at things as a lobby force, when all else fails. But again, who are these righteous do-gooders to criticize some of the rougher element out there of white young fellas who are fed up with teeth and they're frustrated and they don't know what else to do? And then the police warn them, oh, you better be good boys. Spokespeople for ethnic groups, oh, you better be good boys. Who the hell are they to tell people there's freedom of speech in this country? That's the point stressing again today. Let's hope we get a little twist on things to talk about tomorrow. Shake up the breakfast cereal and get it out to you in an interesting fashion. But again, we're not here to entertain. We're here to instruct. We're instructing you to move on the cell structures. You say you really care, prove it. Get a cell going. 3 people, 5 people. Tight-knit, tight-lipped, and get things done in a legal way. Use your imagination for what kind of things you can do. Maybe we'll make some suggestions in that regard down the road in these Dinosaur News broadcasts. And again, Dinosaur News brought to you today by the BritishPeoplesLeague.com. I know the other day I was saying about having to cover the $60 to renew the BritishPeoplesLeague.com domain name. And yet we did have a cell meeting, quite a few actually, on the weekend. So some of you might be wondering, well then why couldn't you take a collection there, John? Because John, you were bragging about in Toronto in the 80s you were able to collect $70 every Friday night when you had get-togethers. Well, the fact is that quite a few of the people that showed up this past weekend for a cell get-together, it was their first time. And I just had a gut feeling we cannot put out a donation hat to people who have just arrived for their first get-together. It just doesn't wash with me somehow. I'll put it bluntly, I feel that those of you good enough to view these shows out there in the blind land, out there in the ether, I think we, in fairness, could leave it up to you to donate to the British People's League. Those who attend cell meetings with yours truly present, I suppose if it's offered to us, but I want to put the donation part on those of you who are viewing the videos and aren't in a position to do much else. Maybe you're medically handicapped or whatever. Well, then that wouldn't make sense. I really am going around in circles here. Medically handicapped people hardly don't have $10 a month to spare. You know what I'm trying to say? There are people who are viewing who just are not in a position even to talk about a cell structure. Although I find that hard to believe. Even if you have a corporation job, you still have one buddy you can trust. Corporation job, one gal or guy, surely. So one way or another, do hope some donations come in. There's a bare minimum required, but I'm sure you know other old age pensioners out there in the real world, and keeping a house eats up your pension. There's not much left over. So anyway, get busy on the cell structure. Let me know how you do. And we'll be back at you tomorrow, which is the 14th of May, 2014. Thanks for tuning in today. If we made the odd person squirm, good. And if we made the people proud out there, good. For instance, the cell party that sent the good email that I read out part of earlier in the show today can feel very, very proud. And those who are doing nothing, absolutely nothing, and you don't intend to do anything, well, why don't you just go back to some of the corny television shows, okay? Leave the ether clear for we who are interested in our people's past, present, and future. So that's it for today. We'll talk at you tomorrow. Keep on smiling.